Morning, Dr. Michael Fisher here in the new office studio, our new place out in the north side of Nanaimo, city on the west coast here of Vancouver Island. And I've just probably gonna do a very short video, but want to just say that it's great to be moved out of the basement and into a place where I can write and think and see the world. I have such a great view out the window of the boats in the harbor here and the beautiful forest of Protection Island, which is a natural native area, and all firs and spruce and hemlock, and there's arbutus trees. It's just a lovely horizon of wilderness, just literally, a couple hundred yards away. Have to go across some water to get to it. So I'm just sharing with you a little of the environment. Today is a foggy, rainy, sprinkly day. I'm just getting up early here, had my breakfast, and thinking and writing and journaling. And I'm just going to read a little bit from my journal spontaneously, something I don't do in videos typically. And I just thought, well, okay, that's part of my teaching, is part of my way of connecting with you and whoever's interested in my work. Even though I'm going to suggest the topic of this video is radical feminist. And what does a radical feminist sound like, act like, could be like, and would I actually prefer a radical feminist perspective be really encompassed and constructed upon the kinds of basic ideas and principles, values that I'm espousing. And those are certainly connected to my work on the path of fearlessness. But let's just start. May 5th. Good sleep, and awoke to the sound of rain and overcast skies, a very different look to the landscape, and a very needed rain for the ecological system. There is, of course, the whole just getting used to this period, living in the West Coast, the woods, at least I mean wilderness, as I every day look past the cultural things of this world in the foreground and look to the distance, to the horizon, the real natural horizon. And there is where I see myself. In the sense, I see myself as an island isolated from the mainland, as an outsider insider, kind of an anthropologist ecologist studying human civilization and its juxtapositioning at this border space of the natural and the cultural and the spiritual. And the problems with the political, of course, very close, not far behind. And it's more like I feel on call as part of a rehab project. And it's all as if there's no other way to be in this world than as a rehab worker. A lot of rehabilitation is needed. And of course, I can just as well say educator. Sure, I can, and sure, I say it as I need to, and sure, it is as it would be just part of it all, my life here on this planet. And no, I do not feel alien as much as an alien studying this species outside of normal perspectives. Well, yeah, in that way, I'm an alien. And it's always been this way. Going back as far in my past as I can think, I always had this tendency to want to pull back from the world, to feed in the world, too deep in the world, too entranced by the world and its distractions and its seductions. I could literally this morning get up at 5 a.m. as I usually do, study, read, and write all day. And if I lived on my own without a partner, I was going to really be someone, as I sort of predicted way back, I would always kind of live alone and be in this world of aloneness and study the world, go into it and come back out of it. But of course, with a partner, you have to co-join and make a different kind of world and experience. And I find that interesting too, as challenging as it is. I'm sitting on the edge of thinking and writing about matrixial theory right now. No different in stance than those who would write about maternal theory or goddess theory. And a sense, all of these, including gift theory, all speak to my long attraction as a radical feminist theorist. A 60-40 man, just briefly explain that. 60% female, feminine, 40% masculine. And of course, I'm obviously in a male body in an obvious way in a certain construction as perceived by this world, but many, many years ago, I transitioned into a 60-40 man, so-called, but really more a woman, more feminine centric than most men by far, but also more artistic and aesthetic centric, not human centric. It's hard to even imagine the human center, this human self and its construction outside of the patriarchy. The complexing and the constructing of identities of gender, where the male is so privileged to basically be the one who makes all the categories that put everybody in their place. No, I'm not interested in just those anymore, and for a long time I've rebelled. But do you think that any of the people out there right now in the big wide world have any idea of what it is I am doing as a trans? Because that's what I am, an advocate, activist on a mission for truly reshaping relationality in transformative ways. This is the kind of speak I want to put out there in the next video and in the next transmission, wherever I write or do art or whatever I do to transmit what I want to express to the world. And I can say right now, if I get anyone working with me, for example, in a residency or any other situation, as someone who's an apprentice, would like to study with me as an educator, philosopher, and radical feminist, artist, well, they would have to, at one level, encounter my deep interest in the inquiries that go on examining the truth, true thing. A philosophical foundation to everything educative. And so it is in that coming to want to work with us, with me, could be with Barbara too, and to explore the deepest philosophical questions. I am going to always come back to, what does this person who wants to study with me, think with me, act with me in some way, how do they want to explore transformative truth? Or transforming truth is probably a nicer way to say it. So this stands out for me this morning, just spontaneously. And it's all very basic, and it's all very clear. I'm on such a lone path with this. Even the critical pedagogues, where I have published in their journals, I was thinking of that this morning, with no interaction back years later. No one talks about my work in critical pedagogy, nor do they want to talk to me really in any depth. And I just think of all the different groups where that's been the case. That's my kind of insider, outsider. I can kind of go in, be part of their work, their thinking, and yet in the end, I always feel on the outside that they really aren't that interested in my work. And it's an empirical fact. It's not just all in my imagination or some kind of victim pattern of, oh, poor me, I'm exiled. No, it's empirical data. I can make a great case of the way I am ignored in those kinds of fields of work and thinking and thought and imaginaries for all kinds of reasons. I don't take it all personally. But this lone path, I really think that they are the critical pedagogists per se, which I identify myself as a critical pedagogue and have for decades, that they're all wrapped up in their leftist gauntlets and leftist towers, righteousness, and even privileges. It's so obvious to me they do not want any conversation. It's very obvious to me, with me, that they do not want to set outside of their own bubbles and their way of thinking. I sit down, I write, and bottom line, all I really want to see is that I'm in a process always every day, and I do this 3, 4, 5 times a day. I pick up this journal and I write. It's about making myself, well, oiled and flexible, an able writer of transmissions, of transformative truth. Not academic, not playing games, not building a career, climbing the ladder, and all that. But I'm interested in bringing out that which I think is not being heard. So recently I've been doing this with Samuel N. Gillian Jr. and his work, which never really got anywhere. He wrote 2 wonderful books on fear, which I've talked about in other videos, but I'll be talking more about that. So that book is just being published right now by Peter Lang. And it's called Igniting a Fear Praxis for Teachers. It's Samuel N. Gillian Jr., His Life and His Courage. I just changed the title of that book, that's why I have to read it over here. But the book's done and will excitingly be out this fall. More on that later. But I'm really interested to, as I finish off the journal, I say here, I'm challenged by these simple notions. What is a pedagogy of normal, a pedagogy of fear? I want to write about this. Feels like I need to write a technical paper. Maybe I need to do a video. Maybe I need to do a blog. I have a bunch of thoughts. I've been interacting with various thinkers, Samuel Gillian, Ari Cazell, others who are interested in fear and education. Or maybe I just need to think more, reflect more, journal more. I really miss my journal, International Journal of Fear Studies. It's been offline for a couple years now almost. And soon, if all goes well, I've got a few people I'm working with, we'll get it back up. And it'll be published with a publisher this time instead of just my private publishing venue, International Journal of Fear Studies. So to close a video on radical feminist, why I came to that, probably back in late 90s, if not sooner. I had lots of interaction with feminists, and they're not all positive, I can tell you. Of course, there's the stereotype of what is a feminist, what is feminism. And over the years, of course, it's become many feminisms, many kinds of feminists, and they don't all agree with each other. So to enter into a really simple trying to stereotype what a feminist is and why it's either really good or why it's really bad for men particularly. And of course, nowadays I'm seeing lots of videos on it's really bad for women. There's a huge backlash to feminism, feminist thought, feminist philosophy, feminist ethics, feminist theory, to the feminine. Why am I a radical feminist is I still am fundamentally and intuitively aligned with the feminist project, which is a feminist standpoint on the world, which to me, I've overlapped that with a fearless standpoint on the world. Feminist standpoint theory, a fearless standpoint theory, these are two things that integrate very closely in my work. And that's not necessarily at all what feminists have been interested in. They're not generally interested in my work on fear and fearlessness. Okay, so I have to progress in my own radical feminist way. But just as radical as the fearless standpoint is that the world ought to be based on a fearless standpoint rather than a fear-based standpoint, and all the toxicity that comes from that, the self-destruction and the great destruction, really, of the planetary ecological system here on Earth. That's a radical jump to not follow that normal, as I mentioned in the journaling, a pedagogy of the normal. it's just killing us, and it just is so not intelligent in a full way, in a holistic way, an integral way, a transformative way. So that's why I align as a radical feminist, because I don't want just a feminism that just makes little shifts in the, or even what they call radical, I don't see as radical enough. So what does that mean to me, quote, as a man, even though I'm a 60-40, as I say, trans? I I think it's just due historically, culturally, and spiritually. It's due that the natural gender domination is no longer required on all the levels of culture, politics, and society itself, civilization, and the reimagining of a new civilization. We need, quote, women. We need, quote, feminists and womanists, and the feminists, the matrixial theory after, say, Bracha Ettinger, which is a really powerful feminist psychoanalysis, post-Freud, post-Lacan, really moving at the far edge of what this world really needs and what psychoanalysis needs, which is really a type of fear analysis as far as I'm concerned. So you see, I've hooked a lot of things here in this short video. I'll leave it at that. I wanted to just let you know that's where I come from as a radical feminist. It is time. It is time for that transition and change and rearrangement of the centering and the focusing and the power and the impact of a feminine, feminist, womanist voicing and presence and consciousness. But it's got to be not just those based on normal standards that are still fear-based. That will not be a transformation. That will not be the kind of revolution of consciousness that is required to a sustainable world. And so that's why I put the fear and fearlessness perspective with it. In matrixial theory as well, I've hooked to fearlessness theory. So those are my engagements. It's here early May in every part of the world, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this year to really move my work ahead, working with you, working with the new Fearology Institute I now have going at the Apocalypsis Institute. Done an earlier video on that. I'll probably do another one. And that anytime you want to connect with me in all different capacities, from research to teaching to exploration, just co-inquiries, but also real projects. I also need to find out how to make a living, even though I'm 71, turned 71 in April. I still feel very, very youthful in my intellect and my capabilities to do a lot of good cultural work here. But I also am very aware, I am getting older, and I may not be on the planet that much longer. So I'm kind of at a place of, like, every day, what can I do? What kind of transformations are ready to happen? Where can I jump in? But of course, I need to do that with other people as much as possible, even though I always am, as I say, on a lone path. Thanks for listening today and the next day. And I'd love to listen to you. So put your comments below and let's continue this conversation.